Hello everyone and welcome to our weekly demo. Thank you so much for joining. We are just going to take about 2 minutes to let everyone filter in. So now is a great time to get situated, grab a beverage of choice, and we will get started in about 2 minutes. If you are now entering the meeting, we are just going to give everybody about 1 more minute to filter in. Thank you so much for your patience. All right, looks like we are ready to get started. Again, thank you so much for joining us. We are really thrilled that you are here. I'm now going to turn it over to our presenters, Francis and Jose.
Thank you, Madison, for the introduction, and welcome everyone to this weekly demo titled Measuring Security Control Effectiveness with Attack Graph Stages. My name is Francis Gibernau. I'm an adversary research engineer within AttackIQ's Adversary Research Team. I'm currently leading the Cyber Threat Intelligence Project, a project that aims to collect, analyze, and distribute threat intelligence in order to develop advanced strategies and techniques to help prevent, detect, and mitigate threats. Today's presentation is going to be divided into two main sections. The first one, presented by me, will consist of the presentation of the new feature introduced this week called Attack Graph Stages, which aims to create even more realistic emulations by dividing them into multiple stages. In conjunction with this, I will present the first assessment template designed with this new capability, which is emulating the recent activities carried out by the politically motivated Pakistani adversary known as APT-36 against the Indian education sector. In this part of the presentation, I will give a brief intelligence background on the profile of the adversary, detailing its sophistication, motivations, and objectives. The second part, presented by my co-host Jose Barajas, will consist in the demonstration of the AttackIQ platform, demonstrating the capabilities of attack graph stages, their possible configurations, and their future use for the creation of multi-test point attack graphs, which allows emulations to be executed in multiple assets at the same time, therefore emulating correctly lateral movement efforts. At the same time, the results of the detailed assessment template will be presented, emphasizing on the results of multiple security controls and the resulting reports. So starting with the presentation, next slide, please, Jose. Previously, for each one of the emulations published by AttackIQ, they were designed in the following form, in which each of the nodes were arranged in multiple rows. In this case, the nodes represent specific emulations of behaviors adopted by the emulated adversary. Nodes should be thought of the procedures detailed by MITRE ATT&CK, which are implementations of a particular technique. This division in multiple rows sought to generate a clear representation of the different stages of an attack and their objectives. The rows were mainly associated to a single tactic of the MITRE's matrix, which defines the adversary's tactical objectives, meaning the reason why he performs an action. The problem with this particular design is that there was no clear representation of the stages in the results. Thus, even though the attack graph was visually divided into multiple stages, it was interpreted as a single stage attack. This reason is what brings us to a new capability, the attack graph stages. The stages encompass multiple nodes within a logic that allows you to identify whether the stage of the attack was prevented or not. Each one of the stages contains a title, a description, and a configuration that allows you to establish a logic to detail the outcome of the same in case certain nodes are detected and prevented. It should be noted that the prevention of a stage does not determine the outcome of the entire emulation. This is because certain stages of an attack are not essential for its success. A clear example of this is the stage of discovery of information from the environment. This is commonly performed by adversaries with the objective of profiling the systems. But in the event that certain nodes in this stage are prevented, it will not prevent the adversary from continuing its activities. At the same time, it is also necessary to detail that attacks usually have certain choke points, which are essential nodes for an adversary to achieve its objectives and which, if prevented, will generate a disruption in the infection chain. These choke points are usually associated with the first stage of an attack, either obtaining initial access or execution, or with the last stages of it, such as exfiltration or impact, such as the exfiltration and encryption of information in a ransomware attack. In this case, the assessment template that is currently being presented, titled the August 2022 attack targeting the Indian education sector with Crimson Rat, is based on a report published by Sentinel Labs in April 2023. The threat actor responsible for this attack was APT-36, also known as Transparent Tribe. It's a Pakistani-based, politically motivated adversary that has been active since at least 2013. It has been observed that APT-36 targeted diplomatic entities, defense contractors, and research organizations in several countries, primarily in India and, to a lesser extent, Afghanistan, Kazakhstan, and Saudi Arabia, with the goal of gathering sensitive information to support Pakistani military and diplomatic decision-making. The adversary responsible for this was discovered in 2016 by Proofpoint during Operation Transparent Tribe, hence the adversary alias. Can we go to the following slide, please? Thank you. It was detected for the first time in 2016 during Operation Transparent Tribe, here, hence the adversary alias, when the actor targeted several officials at Indian embassies in both Saudi Arabia and Kazakhstan, with the objective of directing them to compromise websites focused on Indian military personnel. During the attack that is emulated in this assessment template, the newly released content, APT-36 used a series of malicious Office documents associated with the remote access Trojan, also known as Crimson Rat, which is closely linked to the adversary. In this case, APT-36 concentrated its effort against multiple educational institutions and students located in the Indian subcontinent. The ultimate goal of this activity was to exfiltrate sensitive information collected from the compromised environment. The threat actor, as mentioned, is highly political and has targeted a specific subset of nations, regions, and sectors, mostly located in the east side of the world, so Asia, Europe, Middle East, and to a lesser extent, North America. With this being said, this concludes the intelligence part of the presentation. From now on, I leave you with Jose for the presentation of the platform, the possible configurations for the attack graph stages, and for the visualization of the results of the emulation.
Awesome, thanks, Francis. Really appreciate that introduction and an overview of that threat actor. For everyone on the call, hi, and my name is Jose Barajas, and I'm going to go ahead and walk you through the AttackIQ product today. I saw we have a question from the group. Part of what I'm going to show you first and foremost is, how do you go about testing the latest threat, right? There's a lot of work as part of establishing a breach and attack simulation program that needs to get done before we can get to that point. So I'm just going to cover that down a little bit. From there, I'm actually going to go ahead and show you the attack graph that Francis talked about and showed you. So for the question, I know coming from the team, we'll definitely go look at more detail of the attack graph and show you. So you'll definitely get to see that so you can read the stages because we're going to go over that over in detail. And then if we have some time left, I'll show you a little bit more detail, the output of the attack graph itself, along with maybe some reporting if we have some time to do that. So that's what I have in store for you today. And before I get into what do you need to do before you even get to this point, here at AttackIQ we have a wonderful research team. Like you just heard Francis kind of go through the threat, most recent threat that we developed. We have an entire research team that's dedicated to keeping up with the latest threats from an emerging threat perspective globally. From an emerging threat perspective specific to our customers and the industries that they operate within. And we have customers across almost all industries today. And then of course, standard threat intel like CISA alerts are things that we're a part of, and also do a ton of work with MITRE if you're familiar with that. This is the sources of this type of information. And as a customer of AttackIQ, first and foremost, when you log in, you're going to be able to see some of the latest threats that we've developed. These threats, actually, we're always going to publish an article that's going to give you a very detailed walkthrough of the threat, almost as good as Francis gave today, but also provide you a breakdown of the TTPs and the mitigation recommendations coming and curated by us that we suggest you should implement as part of that process. Now, with that said, we are dealing and talking about a threat of the day today. So like I said, we're going to have all these available. And one thing that I get asked a lot when trying to talk about the product and showcase the product is, well, do you cover the latest 0 days? Do you cover the latest threats? And of course, the answer is yes. But something I want to talk to the group today and talk about today is really, what do you have to do before you even focus on the latest threat of the day? And let me go ahead and show you that through the different assessment templates that we have within AttackIQ. My response typically to that question, and of course, if I answered it directly, the answer is yes, we cover the latest threats, right, as you've seen today. However, the reality of that question is, I tell them, you're focused on the wrong things. And what I mean by that is, before we get into testing the latest and greatest threat, my recommendation is let's take care of our basics. Let's take care of our baseline. So if you take a look at, for example, let's take care of our baseline. And I like to use the analogy of when I used to play tennis, the coach would have us do just the basics over and over and over again because the fundamentals matter. And what I'm saying is the same thing applies here when it comes to cybersecurity and when it comes to establishing a continuous security validation program with someone like AttackIQ. So to the end of that question, here we actually are going to provide a variety of different baseline assessment templates, whether it's your endpoint, as you can see there, whether it's your WAF on the cloud side, or whether it's one of your endpoint technologies. While we do cover the latest threat, my rebuttal to my customers is always, we should definitely check those, but don't do that if you're not validating your baseline, establishing a baseline of the control capabilities that you expect and have within your environment before you get to the point where you're actually running some of these latest threats and seeing how those controls that you now know are working and functional, how are they able to stop the latest threat, right? How do they respond to the latest threat? And that is going to be indicative of what should I focus on next? What should I address next? So let's go ahead and take a look at that by taking a look at some of the latest threat emulations that we've released here within AttackIQ. As you can see here, we have a variety of different threat emulations. Actually, filter, looks like I changed that filter there. Let's go ahead and take a look at the latest one here that Francis just walked us through, targeting the Indian education sector, as you can see. Now, when selecting any threat within AttackIQ, we're always going to provide you a nice little description to help you understand what the given assessment, in this case, an assessment of your ability to mitigate this threat, specifically using Crimson Rat, and provide you that context as part of running this assessment. Something else that we're going to provide you, any configurations that you need to consider. For example, some of these threats may be focused on targeting your Windows servers. Some of them may require specific permission levels to be used. All these are different levers that you have within the AttackIQ platform to emulate the threat to that level of affinity. So as you can see here, we have some configuration notes along those lines to help you understand those things. And then finally, the resources that we used. During Francis's talk, he mentioned SentinelOne had discovered this, or at least provided some good details around this, and so did Proofpoint as well. So these are just examples of the type of resources that we'll provide you as part of any threat within the AttackIQ platform here. Now, let's actually go ahead and create this assessment and show you what this looks like. Now, I know Francis already shown you, although obviously not to the level of detail that I'm going to walk you through here. And let's go ahead and and take a look at this example here. And actually, I have the example here, so let me actually step back. I'm just going to set up here. So here we have the example of one that I actually already ran. This is the one that I meant to show you. And for those of you familiar with either our demos, maybe some of you are customers on the call, you're quite familiar with this attack graph view. But actually, let's go ahead and take a look at this in a little bit more detail to start. As Francis had mentioned, historically what we've done is, if you notice, there was some kind of pattern to our attack graphs previously, where think of it as every row being representative of a stage. What we've chosen to do here is to, move past that and actually give us the capability to specifically organize an attack from the perspective of stages. The reason for this is going to be a multitude of reasons, starting with, first and foremost, being able to break down maybe a very complex attack with multiple stages, tens and tens of TTPs, into bite-sized chunks that are representative of different intentions that the attacker has at a given stage within the threat. Further still, what we did too is give you a description of that specific stage and actually let you define the goals and objectives of a stage, so that from the perspective of the results, we can take that into account when summarizing basically the outcomes of a given threat. So let's take a look at what we did here at a high level, and then I'll go ahead and show you how we've been able to codify some of the outcome expectations that I've just described. So to start, we can see that this attack is broken down. Let me actually zoom out first a little bit. We can see that this attack is broken down into these 4 stages. And for every stage, we can zoom in here further. And we can see exactly, this is initial access and persistence and malware delivery. As we move a little bit further down still, we can see this then moves on to defense evasion. And specifically, it looks like you're using these 3 techniques to try to accomplish that. From there, we can look at local system reconnaissance, followed by collection and exfiltration of that data. Essentially, you can see step by step, just like before, what the attacker is going to attempt. In this case, these are all the different things they're going to attempt, regardless of whether they're successful or not. The idea is, let's capture as much information as possible. And for any one of these, you can actually go ahead and see, and what we're going to give you is a description of what the attack actually entails. So we can see here in the very last stage of the attack, the adversary will seek to collect sensitive information, such as files or removal of media. The idea is, again, we wanted to take, in this case, maybe a larger threat that encompasses 4 threats and give you context per stage so that you can better understand the threat and make a decision about what are the types of expectations we have in this environment, right? As a team, you can make a decision of focusing on stage 4 as an example, the part where we're actually exfiltrating data, because we know we have control capabilities that are strong. Or maybe stage 3, we have a bunch of discovery stuff that's happening. Those are things that we should be logging, but not really a choke point for us, right? We can't really mitigate that. However, we can log and detect it. So let's make sure that that's functional and working. These are the types of considerations that we want to provide you as a team by being able to break down an attack into these kind of sections and chunks based on the attacker's objectives. This is very much in alignment, actually, with the work that we did from attack flows perspective and mitigation and providing some of the security plans as well. But I did allude to the fact that you also have further configuration at these stages. So let's go ahead and take a look at that. And we'll use this first stage, initial access and persistence, as an example. If we were to configure this stage, this has a description just like I've shown you previously, but something else that we've introduced here is going to be stage outcome. As you can see here, in this case, the stage outcome is set to not prevented, essentially saying that if all of the following are actually not prevented, then that's what's going to determine the stage outcome. The idea here is that, and let's actually back up a little bit. We have here the different steps. You can see step 1, step 2, step 3. In this case, this is made up of 6 steps along the way here. However, if you take a look at the type of behavior, things like downloading a sample are things we should absolutely be mitigating and absolutely prevent. But we have some more, and I already described this earlier, we have some other techniques such as, simply querying the registry, listing environment variables. These are more on the discovery side that are not necessarily things that, if we prevent them or if we detect them, the outcome really matters. But things like, downloading a sample that we know is malicious, publicly available threat intel telling us it's malicious, that, frankly, free AV would be able to mitigate, those things matter. So my point, if we go back and look at the stages, as AttackIQ, we will be producing and providing the recommendations. In this case, stage 0, 1, 3, and 5 are the stages that you should be mitigating this threat, right? Your AV should be blocking it. Your perimeter firewall should be blocking it, because, like I said, even free, versions of this enterprise software would be able to mitigate this threat, as an example. However, you may have different thoughts, you may have different expectations, or after having a discussion, so the idea here is that you can actually go ahead and have full control here of either going with the recommendations from our wonderful research team, like Francis. They're going to go through the process, knowing the control capabilities, given our perspective, and help map out some recommendations on what steps should be mitigated, like the ones that I described. However, maybe you expect all steps should be mitigated. Any of these steps, not prevented is enough to call the stage as being prevented or not, or all of the following as an example. The idea here is that one, we're breaking down the stage, like I said, in further detail from the objective. Two, we're telling you within the steps that are within the given stage, what are the ones that matter here? What are the ones that I should care about most? And then three, like with anything with AttackIQ, we're going to give you the ability to actually define it based on your environment, based on your expectations, and based on your goals and objectives as a SOC team. So this is the new capability with a little bit more detail here, essentially. And of course, as you can see, these stages are not specific to just us at AttackIQ. For those of you that are AttackIQ customers today, or if we have any advanced red teamers that are building campaigns, maybe manually and want to codify them, like with anything with AttackIQ, you're going to be able to create your own stages and manage this process yourself as well as a user of the AttackIQ platform. Now, with that in mind, we now have this threat here that we've ran. In this case, this is actually the setup. Let's actually go ahead and take a look at an example where I've ran this, so you can see the type of outcomes that you can see here. So let's go ahead and take a look at results. We can look at the summary. So my internet's a little slow, apologies team.
As we wait for Jose, just wanted to remind everyone that if questions do come up during the presentation, please feel free to drop them in the chat on the side. There's a little question box on the control panel. Please feel free to ask your questions there, and we will get those answered for you. Thanks for your patience, all.
All right, team, I'm back. Sorry for disconnecting here. I'm back. I just wanted to end here by showing you one last thing, right? I've gone through essentially talking about my recommendations in terms of running this process. before you're running the latest threats, which by the way, you absolutely should do, even if you're just getting started in this process. But I would say prioritize making sure that the basics are functional, that your basics are working. That's the first place to start, that our controls are functional and working. From there, we can go ahead and select, I walk through a given assessment to show you essentially the new capabilities from an attack graph perspective, and show you the actual capabilities there, specifically the breakdown in stages. And I think you'll really appreciate that context in detail, not only from the perspective of breaking down the attack into the simple stages, but we really wanted to be responsive to our customers that were asking us, what steps in this entire attack matter? Which one should I focus on? Which one should I not? So really, by being able to break things down into stages, it really puts us in a position to help express that and codify that as part of these assessments. Well, as I mentioned as well, giving you the flexibility to go ahead and actually manage those expectations as well. As your team goes and discuss the latest threat, whether it's the one that we discussed today or one that you're going to face tomorrow, as you have an understanding of what your expected outcomes are, you can codify those so that we can, from the AttackIQ perspective, programmatically understand whether your objectives are being met or not. And we have processes like creating JIRA tickets, ServiceNow tickets based on expected outcomes not being met. So that's going to support that entire process there. And I just wanted to end here by showing you this global dashboard that helps us track, threat actors. Specifically here, you can see I got to run this in this environment and start to see the details, but we can start to see essentially the breakdown across the different threat actors, how those results are, and then also from the perspective of ransomware and other malware families here. This is going to be your dashboard to track things as you manage different threat actors as we have in this environment here. That's actually all we had to showcase today. I really wanted to focus on showcasing the stages. I'm personally really excited about this as a threat researcher. In my early days, giving our product the ability to break down, an end-to-end malware occurrence and how that breaks down is really going to help our customers, quickly focus on the solutions and not trying to go out there and figure out how this threat works. And I think you guys are going to really appreciate that. So again, that's all we had for today. I don't see any questions. Normally like to leave the last few minutes for questions. I don't see any questions, but feel free to reach out to us, info@attackiq.com. If anything comes up after this, I'd be more than happy to answer it. So thank you very much, team, and have a great day.
Just to wrap up, thank you so much again. This is really great, Jose and Francis. Maybe we just give everybody about 30 seconds if they do have a question to pop it in the chat, since we do have a little extra time.
Yeah, and I do see a question here, right? The question, so that everyone can see it, is how can we play these stages against our own environment and understand the gap? Would that be covered in a one-on-one demo? Yeah, so from this perspective, we really focused on the new feature there. But essentially what you saw me showcase today, you would be able to run that in your environment. I happen to be running it in my demo environment for the purposes of today, and really, day to day, that's where I test our software and understand it and work with it. But our customers, or those that may be doing a POC with us, as an example, you would be able to run that attack graph that I walk you through in your environment. So that would be the feedback from your asset to show us exactly what did they prevent, what did it not, what log showed up in your EDR technology or it did not, and how much of that context was actually forwarded to the SIM. That would be the entire process that we would be able to show you, and it would be in your environment. At AttackIQ, we're not spinning up these things to just show you. We want to show you how it would respond, how it would work within your enterprise environment.
Thanks so much, Jose, and thanks for that question. Looks like that is all we have. Please reach out if you have other questions, just like Jose said. We are always here to get those answered for you. Thank you for joining, and we hope to see you next time. Have a great day.